Welcome to another episode of Wasatch First Podcast. I have my friend Dalton Granger here. And then behind all the cords and camera equipment, we got Eric Lichtenberg. I want to give a shout out to Peachy Atomic and to Morph Marketing for making this possible for Wasatch First Podcast. These two guys do a lot. And so we're really excited to introduce our friend here and one of my business partners, Isaac Sanders. Business dad extraordinaire is what I would say. He's got all the best dad jokes, and we're just excited to learn more about him, his story, a little bit more about ARX Tech Solutions, his time in the military, work with the VA, and just to get to know Isaac as a person.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. That's going to be my next tattoo, business dad.
Business dad extraordinaire.
Business dad extraordinaire. Yeah. Do you think that would make a good tramp stamp?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Go to the beach, really show it
Family
off.
friendly
You know,
podcast.
get the 7 kids out there and really just like, now they know why.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. That's
Isaac,
right.
Isaac, could you open with one of your dad jokes? I feel like we
Yeah,
need
sure.
to do one of those.
You got to get these.
So I'm learning to read in Braille, right? And I started reading a horror novel. Something terrible is about to happen. I can feel it.
Oh.
That's a good one. That's one of my favorite ones.
If you want to tune out today. No, I'm kidding. But Isaac, we're really glad to have you. You know, father of 7. You didn't grow up here in Utah, but you do live in Cache County.
I do.
I want to learn a little bit more about.
Yeah, I'm an encroacher.
Yeah, I want to learn a little more about where you grew up and how you ended up here in Utah. Let's start a little bit with that.
Okay. So, right off the bat, I come from nothing. I was born in Hillsboro, Oregon. That's because it was the closest hospital to Yamhill. You in Oregon, you have Yamhill, and then county, and then you have Yamhill, the town. And I lived in Yamhill, the town. I don't know how many people were in the town when I was born there. It was probably about 50, and that's like being
generous.
Generous, yeah. Yeah, it's a place where the post office, the Presbyterian church, and the high school were all the same building.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
My parents divorced when I was young, and we stayed with my dad for a little while, but eventually ended up with my mom, bouncing from apartment to apartment while she worked, 2 to 3 jobs most of the time. So I was typical feral kid in the 90s and 80s. I think they called us latchkey. I took care of 2 brothers up until I was about 9 or 10, and then my mom got remarried, and we moved to Portland, Oregon, big city.
Mm-hmm.
They bought a decent house in a nice neighborhood. I think they paid like $80,000 for a crappy Victorian house that was built in the 1900s, early 1900s. I went to inner city high school, got crappy grades. Didn't graduate high school, got into all kinds of trouble, and eventually got my life back together. Went on an LDS mission. I spent 2 years in England, which was amazing. England's a beautiful country, and
Shout out to Dalton from England.
the chocolate's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
The Indian food's great. Yorkshire puddings are on my top 5 foods of all time. They're really good.
Oh, I've got a funny
With some
joke
roast
about
potatoes
that. Mhm.
and a little bit of gravy.
Good roast dinner. You just,
Oh.
I didn't grow up liking food. I'm really picky myself. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And everyone makes fun of me. They say I don't like flavor because England food is particularly bland in a
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yep.
But even then, a good roast dinner, you know what I mean? It's like that was a Sunday. Every Sunday it was roast dinners. And
I've been chasing good roast potatoes since I got off my mission. I mean, you really have
don't tell the Idahoans that.
That's, to be quite English, their potatoes are rubbish. No, they're not. But good roast potatoes are amazing, and I think the best part about England is that the people are kind of off-putting until you get to know them, and then you have a friend for life. If you make a friend in England, that you definitely have a friend for life.
Sometimes I forget we have this in common. I served my mission in England as well,
Yeah.
England, Manchester, and it's interesting because that's where, here in the United States, sometimes you put on a front, right, and people just smile at you because you're supposed to smile. But in England, you knew if somebody liked you if they made fun of you and picked at you or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
for
But you
sure.
knew that you were like, no, you didn't. If they didn't like you, they just didn't talk to you.
Yeah.
Or maybe they would be friendly, and that's something that I also cherished from England was just that authenticity that existed, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what's cool about Utah, and I've noticed this about you while I've known you. Utah is this interesting hub of so many people internationally have come here, whether it's because of LDS missions or the church, or just, Utah just brings people because of our environment, skiing, snowboarding, all of that, right? And our economy. But to see, all those diverse experiences from this guy grew up in Portland in the 90s, living in England, and then finding his way to Utah is like...
Yeah, we didn't take the traditional route. So I got married right maybe 4 months after I got back from England from my mission. So really quickly, my wife was working with one of my good friends, ex-girlfriends, and as soon as she found out that, that's my wife's ex-girlfriend's brother, sister-in-law's. Anyway, so she set us up on a blind date. Which the girl was more of an acquaintance. It wasn't. We don't keep in contact with her, and there was no particular big friendship there. But best thing that ever happened to me, right? Yeah. So she set us up on a blind date. There was one caveat: I had to like kids, and I'm the oldest of 13 kids, so it was pretty easy for me to say, yeah, that's not a big deal, right? So we went to pick up my snowboard at a local shop, and I took her to Ben & Jerry's ice cream in Portland, which was good experience for me. I thought it went well, but come to find out, she was not excited about a second date. But the great thing about Monique is that it's very hard for her to say no to somebody as charming as me. So she didn't say no, and
I got with that Braille joke.
That was a Braille joke. I got a second chance. Cool, which was good.
Nice.
4 months later, we were married. She had a 3-year-old son at the time. His name's Seth. Amazing kid. He's really good. Love him like my own. I adopted him about a year after we got married.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Dad's not in the picture, or at least wasn't in the picture for a long time. I know that Seth has contacted him and keeps in contact with him, which is good. He needs to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he's mine. I consider him my son, and he considers me his dad. I think. At least that's what he tells me to my face.
He's gonna listen to this and go, "No, you got it all wrong."
Yeah, you're gonna have to redact all that. So how did we get here? I didn't have a high school education when I met Monique, and this is kind of a funny story that I tell a lot of people. I worked at a gas station in Oregon, and you have to pump people's gas. You can't pump your own gas in Oregon, or at least you couldn't at the time.
I've heard of these things. Like, I've been to states where that still happens, and I find it the weirdest thing ever. I'm like, I just want to do it. No. Yeah. They stand there, and that is their job, to pump your petrol for you.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm like, hey, provides jobs, I guess.
And you're really stepping on toes if you get out of the car. Yeah. So that was the case in Oregon at the time, and I worked for a guy by the name of Mike Brinkerhoff, who was an amazing entrepreneur, and he had an Arco station and a mechanic shop, and I did some minor mechanicking, and I hired and fired all the gas attendants, did the deposits, did some invoicing and stuff, and so that's what I was doing, what I wanted to do, and Monique asked me one day, she's like, so are you going to go to college? And I said, I can't go to college. She said, well, why can't you go to college? And I said, well, because I haven't graduated from high school. And at that point, I could see in her face, she was like, oh, I made the biggest mistake today in this clown. What have I done? And so she really pushed me to go back I went to community college, got an adult diploma, which was kind of cool. Then I did some community college classes, and she's like, okay, it's time to go to college. And I said, well, we were a young family. She had a degree as a nurse, and she was doing some nursing. And I said, listen, we don't really have any money for me to go to college. And so we were looking for options, and I ended up signing up for the Army. I did a 8-year contract to become a medical laboratory technician. And the reason that I did that was because it was relatively safe. I had Seth, and Monique was pregnant at the time with our first, and there was education attached to it. So 60 credit hours for finishing the coursework for a medical laboratory technician. And then I came home after the advanced training and completed 12 more credit hours and got a full-on associate's degree. And
nice.
Man, so I graduated college, thought, hey,
that's awesome.
I checked that box off.
Yeah.
Now she'll leave me alone.
Non-traditional student route, right? And there's so many non-traditional students.
Yeah.
And sometimes we look at media and we're like, oh, there's this pitch perfect way to do things like graduate high school, this. But how many of us, you know, by the time we're 25 years old and our brain is finally fully developed, we realize we made all the wrong mistakes or wrong choices in college.
Sure.
And so it's cool that you got to have that experience of going as a fully functioning adult with responsibilities. And by the way, thanks for your service too.
Oh,
yeah.
For your I appreciate that.
So like what made you choose the Army, I guess is the question. Like obviously there's multiple, like we live in Utah.
That's a real easy answer.
The Hill Air Force Base is right there and you hear all the airmen, but like you know.
So I went in to visit my wife on our anniversary at the clinic that she worked at. And I was walking out of the clinic and an Army recruiter came out of the door right next to the clinic that she worked at. There was an Army recruiting station right there. And we struck up a conversation, and a couple hours later I was signed. Yeah, that's it. Sign on the dotted line, and I came home with that contract thinking that I had just done her a favor, and she's like, "You did this on our anniversary?"
She just saw you. You're a man of action.
Yeah, I made a lot of big mistakes early on, but you know, she's pretty awesome lady. She's loyal and stuck with me. So.
Because did you have to, like, obviously you're here, like, did you have to you didn't get were you stationed in Oregon with your family, or did you move around?
No, so an Army recruiter will always lie to you. That's kind of par for the course. I was told that I had a 6-month training, including basic training, and that's pretty long. That's pretty long training. It ended up being almost a year and a half of time away from home. So I started basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and that's a 9-week process from first training day to last training day. But there's weeks of holdover before you get there, and after you're done. So. And then when you get to your next station, there's a few weeks of holdover. I did my coursework at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, and then I did clinicals at Fort Lewis, Washington, it's near Tacoma, up in the Bay Area, in Washington State, and so that the total time away from home was about a year and a half, and then I had a little stint where I was up in Tacoma where I could come back for the weekend. So I left my first child when he was about 4 months and didn't come back until after he was almost 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. It's a lot of sacrifice.
It was a long time, and interesting. He is the one kid that I like. We don't have that great bond so that's kind of it's interesting I love him to pieces, but my other kids come and talk to me. You know, they want advice. He just doesn't want it, doesn't need it.
Independent.
Yeah, pretty independent.
Yeah, just learn to be independent.
Do you start notice, like, do you feel like there were certain decisions, like you say you made mistakes, but like decisions that you feel like that caused those kind of situations, I guess? Because I'm a first kid too, and they're always, I like to say we're the mess up kid, right? And obviously you had another child at the time, but like this was your first with you guys
So my childhood was pretty, like, I had to grow up really fast.
Yeah.
I left home when I was 15, and really didn't spend much time back at home. Just a small stint before I left for England. I guess I think that I didn't have a lot of the opportunities that I've given my kids, right? And when you don't have good opportunities, your decisions are, I mean, it's a bad decision or a bad decision.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of good decisions that you can make. So your path is stagnant, right? It takes a lot longer to claw your way up to where normal people are, especially when you start that way. And my stepdad was an entrepreneur, had his own business, and didn't graduate high school. And so education wasn't something in my household that was talked about, that was encouraged. Like, nobody asked me where. Well, there's reasons why they didn't ask me what college I was going to, but it's probably because that my trajectory was saying I wasn't going to go to college. But there nobody talked about college. It wasn't a big deal. So
that but as a parent, that's the thing you've done, that you try to give your kids, right? Is that you're like, I'm going to give them the opportunities I didn't
absolutely
have.
And we do everything that we can to encourage them to go to university. Seth, my oldest, is going to graduate from the University of Utah in the fall with a bachelor's degree. It's the first person in our family to graduate with a 4-year degree.
That's amazing.
He's more than that, though. You've told me. So.
Oh yeah, Seth he's an amazing kid. So he does. He did parkour for a lot of years. We got him a trampoline, and that kind of set him on a path to he's an athletic freak of nature. He's got really good spatial awareness. So he does all of the craziest flips on the trampoline. He can do them on the ground. He's actually, I think the mascot's name is Swoop. The University of Utah. He's one of the mascots up there.
Oh, nice.
He just today is his first day on the job at Channel 4. He's producing the weather there for them, which is his first job out of college, and he hasn't graduated yet, but he will in the fall with a bachelor's degree. And
I mean, it's not as easy as like I'm in school. It's not like you're starting school. It's not as easy as everyone says it is to finish a 4-year degree anymore.
Well, there's a big stigma too with it. Like, I think exposure to social media gives these kids like access to maybe the 1% of people that didn't graduate college, and they're screaming at them, "Hey, don't graduate from college. It's worthless. It's worthless." And I just couldn't disagree more. It puts you in a different stratosphere when people are looking at you for jobs, when they're looking at you for business opportunities, right? If you have a 4-year degree, it proves that you're willing to go the distance, that you're committed, that you have critical thinking skills, all of those different things that it took me, 20 plus years. Well, I don't know if I have them yet, but I'm still working on them. But most kids get that at the university in 4 years, and it puts them on a different trajectory. It gives them different opportunities that I never had growing up. And so we want that for our kids. And we have kids that are choosing not to go to university. I've got a 20-year-old Kai who he works at Frito-Lay, and hopefully he goes to university, but I can see him working there his entire life. He's just
what they want.
Content.
He's just content. That's a great way to put it. He's content. And he's a great kid. He's a really, really good kid, and but he just doesn't have any desire to go. So
that's fair. I think that it's not for everyone. I mean, you could say the same things with missions and same things a lot of things in life. Adults, I've seen it in my siblings. You've probably seen your kids how just their personalities, they seem to want to go different places, and that's okay.
Yeah. Elijah had alluded to this earlier, but not everybody fits in the same box, right? And my path or my trajectory to a college degree was different than a lot of people's, and not everybody is cut out for a traditional path. But there's you need to do something. You have to do something to learn critical thinking, to learn discipline and attention to detail, and all the things that will help you to be successful in life and business and whatever you do.
I gotta ask, so you came from a family of 13 kids, like that. Did you guys grow up LDS, or you came to find it yourself?
That's an interesting story. So my parents originally were LDS when I was born into the family I was born into. After my mom divorced my dad, there was a time where we got to get exposed to all different kinds of religion. I remember seeing the Care Bears movie at the Buddhist temple that my mom was going to.
Oh, wow. So that's awesome.
So there was my mom explored all kinds of different religions when she was single, and we were exposed to a lot of different non-traditional churches.
That's awesome. I think that it gives you a lot more open awareness of what everything's out there. And dang. So then she got married to an LDS guy, and they had a pretty cookie cutter LDS kids. Fill the
engagement.
pew, right?
Like
fill the pew.
Yeah, fill 3 pews.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we were a force to be reckoned with.
All the best young men's projects.
Yeah,
the Eagle Scouts.
All the young men's, right? So we dominated in that regard.
You made your own sports. You had your own
church ball was like
3 rotators.
If they had been more athletic, it's funny. I'm actually the only one in my family. Well, so my brother Caleb and I spent a lot of time skateboarding together, but nobody else wanted to swim or play football or basketball. I was the only one that really wanted to do any of those things. I'm not good at any one of those things, but
you give it a good try.
But I'm okay at all of them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was talking to someone about Oregon recently. I'm going out there in September or October to visit.
Yeah,
and I was learning about the Oregon Trail and this whole thing about being trailblazers. I was reading. There's that book. I think it's called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, and he's from Oregon as well.
Oh
right?
yeah.
And his whole thing is
he
he was running on these trails, and every day after college, he was just thinking to himself, what can he do to set himself apart and leave a legacy behind. But it kept coming back up, was that trailblazer mentality, doing something that other people haven't done before. And I think that's a very Oregon spirit that gets to be brought here also into Utah, because we had the pioneers obviously made their way here, right? And so I think that's something that I admire about your story while I'm reading this book at the same time. It's just like Isaac Sanders is a trailblazer, right?
Well, I don't know. I think that I have just continued down the path that's been put in front of me. I don't know if I would call myself a trailblazer. I appreciate that, though. Thank you.
Yeah, I think choosing the adversities that you've been through, and it's like you said, sometimes you only have 2 choices and both are bad, but ultimately you have trekked your way that regardless of whatever like suffering or difficulties have come along, you've chosen to truck and to blaze a trail, because that's what a trailblazer is. You're surrounded by fields. Both options going to require some cutting, right?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you've cut.
Yeah, definitely. And there's been some, there's the old adage that it takes a village to, raise a person, and I don't think anybody is without that can escape that, right? I mean, even the trust fund child, right? He is born into that charity, right? And I've been very lucky to be exposed to a lot of really good people in my life, whether it's mentors or business partners like yourselves. There has always been somebody to help me along the way. At every turn, there's something new to learn from somebody, or somebody's lifting you up or lending a hand. We all owe somebody something, right? Yeah. I just happen to owe many people so much.
And I noticed that when you and I first started talking, and we were before we became like official business partners, we talked a lot about our backgrounds, and we grew up kind of similar in a lot of ways too. Just having to trek your own way through and break a bunch of toys before you figure out how to make them work, And but you and I talked a lot about I have a passion for mental health and for addiction recovery, homelessness community. You have a little bit of synergy there as well as a veteran and working with veterans who have gone through PTSD. So I think this is a good way to transition into that conversation. And why is it you want to give back to these people, and what have you seen in that community?
Yeah, so I mean, it really starts with my exposure to. I spent 4 years as a medical laboratory tech in the Army. That's what I went in for, and I found really quickly that I didn't like the medical field. And so when I re-enlisted, I asked to be put somewhere different and go through different training. And they had what's called the 00 golf position, which is really a position where they can just stick you for a 4-year period, and you don't have to go retrain or do anything. And what we ended up doing was I got put with a bunch of guys who had seen hard trigger time in Iraq and Afghanistan. And what we were doing was we would go to what's called LDAC, which is where officers go to, it's like their summer camp. They get trained on basic soldiering skills, and we would help them learn those things, mostly running ranges, but there was rappelling and hand-to-hand combat and throwing hand grenades, which I thought that was the most fun that I'd ever had in my life, right? Nice. Is teaching these officers how to do these different things. And I got to be exposed to a lot of guys who, like I said, had seen real combat. Right? I've never seen real combat, but these guys, some guys leave their families, they go overseas, they fight for freedom, and they never come back. And their families really suffer. But some of those guys go overseas, see hard combat, see things that no human should ever see, and they come back a completely different person, broken. Some of them are suicidal, some of them are addicted to drugs, some of them are addicted to alcohol, some of them have severe mental trauma, some of them have been injured and they have TBI, traumatic brain injury, they're missing limbs, all kinds of things that guys have just suffered, and I would say needlessly. I don't really, I'm not a big supporter of violence. I'm not a supporter of war, but there's utility and necessity in it. And, I grew a real appreciation for the sacrifice that those guys had put in for my freedom, so that my family could be safe, so that my kids could have opportunities that I didn't have, and so that I could have opportunities that I wouldn't have had, if they hadn't done that. Yeah. So if you're not a patriot before you join the military, you definitely will be after you come back, and you gain this appreciation. So now when I see, and you don't get to see World War II guys anymore, but when I see Vietnam vets, I have this new deep gratitude for those guys and what they sacrificed for us, for their country. Obviously I'm closer to Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've got a lot of friends who, saw combat in those operations. Even Bosnia and Kosovo, my old first sergeant had been over there during those incidents. I've seen suicides in real time. Like we went to a station out in Wisconsin. I can't recall what the name of it is. Fort McCoy. I think it was Fort McCoy. And our first formation, when we got there, we had gotten there one day, got unpacked, went to bed, got up, got breakfast, got in formation, and our platoon leader was missing, and she had hung herself in her room, and that changes. When something like that happens, when you see something like that, it changes your perspective. Whether you see combat or whether you're it makes things real, right?
Yeah.
I've seen guys, after a long day on the range, wake up in the middle of the night, and not be awake, but be going through nightmares about when they were back in combat. And so I guess the point of all this is that these are the kind of things that drive me to kind of want to give back. And so when we came to Utah, and that's a whole nother story, I was traveling back and forth from California to home here in Cache Valley, and so I didn't get involved in the community. I didn't know anybody, and so when I did get back here and I was at home, what ended up happening was I needed to find a sense of community. I needed to find a place to do some work, and I went up to the vet center looking for that, and found a place to volunteer and to give back and support the Dan Gillenskog Veterans Resource Center Foundation. And originally it was the Cache Valley Veterans Association. Rick Filmer and Phil were the two guys that put it together and did a fantastic job, putting something in place for vets in a rural community. Because if you think about how many people we have here in the rural community who are veterans, per capita, it's a much greater number here in rural communities than it is in urban communities. And they're underserved because all of the resources are in those urban communities. So Rick and Phil put this CVVA together to help guide those guys to get help with suicide prevention and addiction recovery and all kinds of other things. And so I got involved, and Phil and Rick are they're in the process of closing down that nonprofit. But a guy by the name of Tony Flores and Wally Odd, we should have Wally on this podcast. He's an amazing person. I talk to him on a daily basis. But these guys put together what's called the Dan Gillenskog Veterans Resource Center Foundation and asked me to be the chief technology officer, because at the time I was volunteering just, basic computer skills and IT work, networking, and what have you for the VA. And they said, hey, can you come join our organization? I jumped at the opportunity to be a part of that community and to serve those guys is absolutely something that I just am really passionate about. On top of all that, I have two brothers who were Marines. A stepbrother, his name is Drew Martin. He was a Marine sniper, and then my blood brother Tim, who was a mechanic. And both of those guys have some sort of PTSD, and they both made an incredible sacrifice, so that I'm proud of, for one, and incredibly grateful for. I've got an uncle who served 20 years in the Navy, and a grandfather who was in the military as well in World War II. So I come from a long line of military guys.
That's awesome. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I have huge respect for it as well. I mean, I'm from a country where we dealt with the world wars personally, and everyone's family was in it, and so we've always had a lot of, at least where I grew up, not everyone's like, but where I grew up, it was huge respect for any veterans, like the World War II veterans, and anyone that did go, because they did sacrifice so much. So I really, when I do run into veterans, like, it is you do feel grateful, because I don't know that sacrifice. I just know they sacrificed a lot to do what they did, to where I don't have to know that sacrifice. I've never had to serve or see that stuff, but I know it really does mess with people to the point where I can't imagine waking up one day and your platoon is just, that must mess with the whole group of people, because it's like, this person, you all cared for this person, and they were just like, they couldn't handle the stuff that they were having to deal with, and you just want to help people not get to that point. It must be, it's very hard, but also, like, you obviously have a lot of work to do to help them, and not enough work goes into that. Not enough people know about it enough to where they just think it's there.
Yeah, there's some people that definitely take it for granted. I mean, I think we all do to some degree. We don't think about, we just go through our daily activities and don't, we don't think about the fact that we have both our legs or both our arms, or that we're mentally normal. That we're not having nightmares about some of the horrific things that we've seen. We definitely all take that for granted, and serving in some capacity helps to remind us that there are people out there that have sacrificed their whole lives.
I agree. Yeah, so both of my grandpas served in World War II. On the Taylor side, he was a colonel and became a professor of psychology. On the Berkman side, just a rough flamethrower, just came from Chicago, mean guy, right? And I wanted to touch base on this for a sec, because you talked about resources that are available for vets. My grandfather, who was more on that prestigious end of things, the Taylor, he had so many resources that helped him to be successful, but also to further on and help others. Yeah. Whereas on my mother's side, it wasn't as much, right? And he suffered so much because of just not knowing where to go and what to do. So if there's a veteran listening today, what can they do right now to get resources, or if there's a family member of a veteran available today to get resources, whether it's through you or through something you recommend?
Well, so if you're up in Cache Valley, you can go to the Dan Gillenskog Veterans Resource Center and talk to anybody on staff there. They will help you, fill out paperwork, turn it into the VA, make you aware of local resources in the community. We're located in North Logan, right behind the North Logan Walmart. If there's a lot of guys that won't come in, that for whatever reason are apprehensive about, some people I would think are reluctant to come in because it's not macho. It's not, right?
Asking for help.
You're asking for help, right? And a lot of guys, I don't like to ask for help. and so I can understand that. But there's so many things available, and you know, it can be as private or as and non-private as you want it to be. The people up at the Veterans Resource Center that I work at are incredible professionals, and it's a great place to feel. You just walk in there and you feel comfortable. There's nice, comfortable couches. We got a kitchen. You know, there's computers for you to apply for jobs or look for resources. And Janine is almost always there. Janine Ball, who is an amazing individual who volunteers all of her time to be up there helping veterans get the stuff that they need. If you haven't applied for the PACT Act, go to va.gov and apply for the PACT Act. We have other resources up at the Veterans Resource Center to help guys apply for the PACT Act. That's guys who have been exposed to, I think, Agent Orange and other chemicals, who need to fill out paperwork so that they can get compensated for those exposures. And if you're in, I don't know about all of the resources available, along the Wasatch Front, because I'm kind of isolated up there in the valley, and I spend most of my time up there. But if you give us a call, just look us up online, Dan Gillenskog, Veterans Resource Center. You can also look us up at Cache Valley Veterans Association. I think those websites are still up. Anyway.
Awesome. Yeah, what I'd say too, I notice with veterans is sometimes they may not be willing to ask for help, but they're willing to help. And so if you're a veteran who doesn't want help, but you want to go help someone, then maybe contact our friend Isaac here.
Absolutely. Please, give me a call. And that's really kind of what inspired me to go up there. I really needed help. I needed help kind of breaking into the community. And giving something of yourself is always a great way to get something back.
And how long have you been doing that one up there?
I started volunteering up there back in September, I believe, 2022.
Oh, okay, nice.
So not long.
No,
not long. I mean, I haven't been. We've lived in Utah for 5 years, but I've only been here for about a year. If that tells you anything about my commute back and forth between, my previous employer and my home, which that's another fun story. I was working for a cybersecurity firm, which is how I got exposed to IT. And BlackBerry was going to purchase us. So I worked for a company called Silence, and Silence pioneered AI technology or machine learning into antivirus software. It was a very, very lucky job application. I was on LinkedIn. I was trolling LinkedIn trying to find a better job.
Yeah.
I applied, and I was interviewed by a guy by the name of Malcolm Harkins, who's been a great mentor and a friend, and is famous in the cybersecurity world. Shout out to Malcolm. And then Tom Lee, who's a dear friend as well, hired me, took a chance on me, and so I worked for that cybersecurity firm. It was a startup at the time, and then grew to an enormous size. BlackBerry, which is an old phone company, came in and purchased us. At that time, I was told I wasn't going to have a job. The vice president that I worked for came in and said, "Look, it's not looking good. You're going to get your pink slip, but hey, you've got stock options and you've got a severance package." And so I just proceeded like I was going to get let go, and we bought a house out here. We had a family reunion. We came out here and we bought a house, and I didn't get let go. And so I kept my job. It was a decent job, and I couldn't, I was torn between, hey, if I leave this beautiful 6-figure income in California, and how do I replace that in Cache Valley? We'd already made the move. Our kids were in school, and so our plans changed drastically at that point, and I literally flew back and forth, drove sometimes between California and Cache Valley, and
Dalton and I would have been in junior high school during BlackBerry days. Yeah,
I remember that one.
Yeah, the BlackBerries were cool, but you had the Motorola Razors that if a kid had one of those, they shined.
Yeah.
And everybody loved it. But the BlackBerries was like, okay, that meant your dad was like a CEO.
Oh,
yeah. That's what that meant, right?
Yeah, or you were a poser. I was a poser. I had the BlackBerry Pearl. I liked the form factor. It was really small, and it had that little trackball, and you could spin it in your hand. It was
You could fidget with it all the time.
The original fidget spinner.
Yeah,
that's right.
Just
the BlackBerry Pearl is the original fidget spinner.
So did you go from that job to obviously where you have your own business now?
So I worked for BlackBerry for a little while, and then I started chasing money and title, and I got a better job at a satellite company, a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. The name of the company is called Terran Orbital, and I just ran into some guys that I didn't get along with. That'll happen in life.
It does.
Right?
Yeah,
and so I left that job and kind of mutually left that job. They didn't want me, and I didn't want to be there. And anyway, so I spent some time on unemployment trying to figure it out. I thought I was just going to get another facilities job.
Right.
I was a senior manager at that point. I was looking for a director's job, and I spent 8 months trying to find one. And I didn't find one. And so my wife and I kind of, we took it to heart. We prayed and tried to find, something that would work. And I ran across a MSP platform, managed service provider platform called Atera. And Atera is a platform, an agent that you can install on a computer that'll give you back-end access to do patch management, run scripts, and all kinds of good things that help computer hygiene. And I wasn't sure, as a facilities guy, I had been exposed to IT, and I had helped out in IT department at Silence, and certainly helped out at Terran Orbital. And I'm the kind of guy that doesn't think that there is something that I can't do, right? So so I was like, I know these guys, and they can do this, and I just figured, why can't I? So I got a hold of the platform. I did a free trial and started messing around with it at home at my lab, and decided to start a business. Nothing else was happening. That was about the same time that I volunteered at the Veterans Center. So by the time I got the business put together, it was February of this year. So it's not an old business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're just starting out. No seed fund, no investors, just
trailblazing,
old-fashioned, ingenuity, grinding it out, trying to figure out all of the different things. And definitely, I don't know everything. I don't pretend to. There's definitely some gaps in learning, but there isn't anything I think that you can't learn these days, right? There's so much information available, and so many things that you can expose yourself to that will give you a leg up on just about anything. So I like to call YouTube University. That's my go-to if I can't figure something out.
Yeah, or ChatGPT. She's your old ship that
She is such a beautiful. ChatGPT is my mistress. Don't tell my
just to Monique, we're sorry, but just to preface this, when I met Isaac and as we started doing business together, it was always, have you used ChatGPT? Have you used ChatGPT? And eventually we're like, this is like back in the day when the pirates were sailing the sea and they had their their own little ship.
Yo-ho.
Yo-ho. This is our that's what the world of OpenAI has become for us.
I mean,
ChatGPT is amazing. I mean, you can take something like I don't pretend to be a writer or a content creator, but you can take something that you've written and plug it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you make this better?
Yep.
And it'll make it better. And as long as you're using your own words and your own content, right? You're not plagiarizing stuff. It's an amazing tool, really is.
Yeah, it's turned me into an editor instead of an author. I'm now they give me some ideas and I can take it and put it in what I want it. But it gives you that clicked, and you just see it and it clicks in your head to where you can make something even out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've had to learn how to use it and loved it. It's made my job go 10 times faster because of what it does. I'm just not taking what it says, because sometimes it says the dumbest stuff and you have to read through it. but it does give you that base idea of like, hey, this is a really good idea. I should use this,
and you can use it to build on some of the things that it's already done. We at the vet center that I work at, the Veterans Center, we were recently writing an ARPA grant and used ChatGPT to kind of flavor it up a little bit, put some seasoning on it. And that's always nice.
Yeah, that's great. So here's a question for you then, because here in 2023, we have a lot of people who were becoming business professionals in the 90s here in Utah, right? So the Sarah Connor, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? You know what movie I'm referencing?
Yeah.
I don't know if I reference a movie, right? But we know what we're talking about, right? The Terminator. And so many people are afraid of AI and integrating AI, and they also don't even necessarily understand what AI even is. And so as a business owner yourself and somebody who's paving the way here in Utah, do you have any recommendations or advice for people looking to involve AI in their work?
Well, I like the term machine learning. I think I learned that term at Silence. It's where you take a data set and you introduce it to a computer that can process the data in real time and help you make decisions. I think using AI in business, I would say there's a big stigma, right? Everybody's afraid of AI. Everybody's afraid of Terminator. I think it's an opportunity to really advance some of the things that we do. As far as like, what's a good example? Data scientists really can take some data sets and feed them into machine learning and aggregate, diagnosis, right, or statistical data, and then use that data to make actionable decisions, right, or use that actionable intelligence to make good decisions. I think that's the real blessing that machine learning and AI can give us is, and in order to use it in the business, I would just say, use it to make good decisions.
Yeah.
That's the way we use ChatGPT, right? We plug in our own information, our own data into it, and then we use it to elevate that data and make really good decisions. I hope that, I guess my hope is that that's the main purpose of it, is to elevate diagnosis and elevate decision making and elevate intelligence so that we can grow. We can become better than what we are right now. That's
agreed.
On the back side of that, you've got guys like Chris Sestito that are using technology to kind of help protect us from bad actors that use machine learning or AI, right?
Yeah. And there's this stigma. I think people are afraid that they're going to be replaced by AI, but I heard this quote that's stuck with me, which is, it's not AI will replace the workers in 2023. It's the worker using AI will replace the workers not using AI.
And that's what everybody wants. You don't want to have like there was some fear that Tesla was going to take over the trucking industry, right, and put millions of truckers out of work, and that's always a scary thing. I think to some degree technology is always going to come in and take over certain basic functions, but my hope is that it really just elevates, the work that we're already doing.
Yeah.
There are certain times you can't take the human out, like. Computers can't make those certain decisions that a human would make. It can't put that number into an emotion or ethical choices. It just wouldn't be able to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
So with your own business that you started up, like what do you like to do? What does it focus on?
It's funny because I've put a lot of my IT business on hold right now to be a part of Wasatch First. A lot of the things that Wasatch First is doing are really amazing. So I originally, we're an MSP, a managed service provider, and what that means is that we want to be a small help desk or IT department for SMBs, right, small to medium-sized businesses. So we'll go in and sell hardware and software licenses. We have a help desk that our clients can log into and ask us questions and log different trouble or different issues that they're having, and then we can troubleshoot it in real time from home,
from remote, right?
Yeah, remotely from our office. We're a service first business, so I think that it's really important to physically show up for your customers, so that they get to know you. I think that relationships in business are incredibly important. You know that about me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't get away from that. If you want to have a good, successful business, you have to really be cognizant of your clients. You have to understand them. You have to know them. You have to know what they want. One of my clients, Right Deal Auto, who is actually just up the street from us here in this office, his main selling point was that we brought the proposal to his auto dealership to offer IT services, and talked to him about it right there. A lot of the other companies that we deal with wanted to do it over the phone or over a Zoom call, and that's just, I believe in shaking hands and looking people in the eyes, and so we're a service-based business, and we specialize in IT.
I mean, I agree on that. Like, I think I always say it's humanizing the logo. Like, there's so many logos, there's so many brands on Google, and you can find everywhere, but who's going to put the face behind it? And you're, like you were saying, willing to go to that person. You're not just a brand. Like, there's a person behind you and the company, and you want people to know that, so that they can know, hey, yeah, that's my friend, and the guy who helps me this stuff, it's Isaac, right? And it's not just, it's RX, nope, it's Isaac, in the end of the day. And you're making your own business. And I think that's what separates a lot of people that go that, don't go that little bit extra and say, hey, let me help you. And
there's some grace there too, right? Because you can't really, like I said, you can't know everything. I can't know everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to make mistakes. But if you have a relationship with that person, they have some grace for your mistakes, right? And vice versa. If you don't have a relationship and you're just a logo, or you're just some dude in a van that shows up and fixes stuff, you don't get any grace. You don't get that, and I think that's important.
Yeah. That's a Dalton Granger trademark, more marketing, humanizing the logo, just so you know.
Yeah, it's just like what I like to say. I think it's huge though, right? I really do. Like, you can go to Google and I can search one word and I'll find 1 billion companies. Yep. But how do I know what that's going to do for me? You don't know, like, oh, I know Isaac, Elijah, Ethan, us here. Like, we know. Yeah, I may not know that. I'm going to do the research to make sure I know it. I'll make sure you're taken care of. And that's why, that's why we work together. We like those kind of situations where you're the expert, but if you don't even know it, I know you're going to go find out. Yeah. And you're going to make sure it's done right. And I think that's a huge selling point for a lot of companies that maybe might be struggling, is where can you go that next step and help others really show them who you are as a person and show that you're wanting to work hard for everyone.
Yeah, and I would say no amount of paying for a Google advertisement gets past remembering an old friend. So and I've talked to Dalton about this. I'm a big believer. Google ads, paid for advertising is fantastic, but this is part of why we're doing what we're doing at Wasatch First and Wasatch First Podcast, is because we want to, just like Dalton said, show who's behind the curtains of the logo, right? Build that friendship with people. So that way when they think, it's not just like, oh, I saw this, because we're covered in ads in 2023. I got ads, I'll get ads coming out my nose when I get on YouTube to watch the highlights of a football game. But when you are thinking, man, I really need, some technology solutions. I got this security company that needs help with installation. I know Isaac Sanders knows all about this. And so I'll make that phone call way sooner than paid for ads.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. So you've been doing this business for a bit. You're also now part of Wasatch First, been working hard like crazy. Our Slack channel is Isaac everywhere. He's doing everything. So it's brilliant. I see the Slacks at 3 a.m. Isaac, Elijah, Ethan's on there talking, figuring it all out.
We're spending Thanksgiving at Isaac's this year.
You guys are all invited. Bedtime for me is like 10 o'clock. These guys will attest. If you keep me up after 10, I'm worthless. So I think they've gotten me to stay up till about midnight a couple of times, and
I've seen it.
Yeah, but listen, I've told Elijah this, and like I'm getting on in years. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. You guys are spring chickens. Now's the time for you guys to really, put in the work and make the sacrifice to build something amazing. I wish I would have known about entrepreneurship before I got kind of pushed into it, because it's been a real revelation. It's been kind of amazing to start an IT business. And then I met Ethan, and Ethan's not here. He should be here. He should be sitting right next to me, because he's now a business partner. We have a permanent holiday lighting business. I literally was going up to Ethan's apartment to talk to him about a proposal. I was, Ethan does some of the same things that I do. And so when I met Ethan, there was kind of an instant friendship there. And we were bouncing ideas off each other, and I said, hey, I've got this proposal. I need you to take a look at it, because it was for a similar project, or a project they were working on together. And I walked into his living room, and he had LED lights all over the place, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? And he was really excited about it. He's showing me all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And I think he said, I'm trying to get into business I'm trying to start a business. And I'm like, well, Ethan, like I grew up in sheet metal, like heating and air conditioning was, I have all of the tools to cut all of the tract for this. Let's go into business. And that was like a super fun moment, because within 5 minutes, he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And a couple weeks later, we had an LLC.
You kind of have that effect on people. I remember being on a phone call with Isaac Sanders, 6 years ago, was it? No, 2 months.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
2 months ago, and never even seeing his face, and working with him on a separate project I was doing for another company. And then Isaac and I were, we got introduced through Ethan. We were bouncing ideas off each other, and it was just instant synergy. And we were like, wait a second, this idea this friend of mine had, is incubated right now and is in the works, but we knew something was going to immediately happen. And then our very first time we ever met in person was during a business deal.
Yeah,
we got to shake hands.
Yeah, great. Yes, I mean, listen, you could tell right away when we were talking that you were the driving force behind that idea, that really there was no direction or guidance or motivation to do anything unless you were at the table. And it was very impressive to me. And so when you asked to work together, I was like, heck yeah, there's no way that I'm passing that up.
2 months later, and you're in front of a microphone.
Yeah, I'm sitting in front of the microphone. Well, we have this business deal that came along because of relationships. Wally down at the vet center introduced us to an amazing company, and I'm sure more to follow on that later episodes. But this project is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I can't think of anybody that I've ever met that I'd rather be in the trenches with than yourself and Dalton and Ethan and Eric and Zenick and all of these, and Joel and Dr. Whittle, and all of these people that we've met are just hard chargers.
Cassidy, Ryan.
And Ryan. Definitely.
Yeah.
Cassidy and Ryan. You can't forget. Cassidy is absolutely a hard charger for sure.
She's on my case every day.
So you've built an amazing team, and I get to be along for that ride. That's an easy yes, right?
But that's what's cool about your story is that, you told me a little while ago when we were driving to go get Zupas, you were saying, man, if only when I was in my 20s I would have known these things. And then I'm sitting on my side and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I have this wealth of knowledge, I have this wealth of experience. Like, this is like, I'm not one of those people who necessarily believes everything happens for a reason. But if there were a time in my life where I was like, okay, this is pretty strange. Like, these relationships that have formed together in the last 2 months have been so... it's a cheesy word, but synergistic, that I can't help but think like something's in flow right now. Something's in motion. Some wave is carrying all of us somewhere, and it's been really fun to watch and be a part of.
Yeah, same. I feel the same way. I have to agree with you. It is cheesy to say that things happen for a reason, but I think people's paths converge, right? You start walking down a path, and then if you're paying attention, you find opportunities to work with people that are doing great things, but you have to be paying attention.
Yeah,
I think that's the key.
I think you also got to break a couple bones first before you realize,
Oh, for sure.
the right place to go.
Oh, man, yeah. The path is full of rocks and twigs and stick to fall over, and then you get back up and you keep going, and you've shown us that too. So I have one last question I like to ask everybody as well as we're coming up on this is, you've been through a lot, you've also you've seen a lot of great things, you've worked hard at where you're at, so how do you actually define success for you, like personally, in your business?
Ooh.
It's a killer one, I know.
Defining success is, I think, if you can fail and get up and dust yourself off and carry on, I think that's my definition of success. Mm-hmm. Success is going to come in all different forms and different, financial milestones, and but I think the key to success really is to be able to fall down, to break a bone, to slap a cast on it, to tear the cast off, and to keep walking. I think that's how people should define success.
Yeah.
No, definitely, I agree on that. I think we've all been on little hardships at times, and it's like, you can fall down, you can just go away, you can walk the other way, you can turn around, but it's getting up and going back at it again, and really finding it until you find that time where you've been successful and you go, yes, this is worth it. This has been the hardships.
I was watching TV a while ago. It must have been a couple of years, and I was watching Dwayne Johnson kind of tell his story. Mm-hmm. And he tells people about how he had this dream to be in the NFL, and it was the only thing he ever wanted, right? And he was shooting for the stars. Mm-hmm. And when he looks back at, because he wasn't successful in the mm-hmm. NFL, ended up going to the Canadian Football League or something like
CFL,
that. CFL or something like that. Anyway, but he found a different way to success. He said, and I shot for the stars, and I'd say I did pretty well. I'm standing on the moon, right?
Yeah.
So he looks back at his life, and he can look back and say that he's been successful, and even if he didn't get to the NFL, he's definitely been incredibly successful in so many other places, and it's because of his ability to pick himself up and carry on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks Isaac for coming on. Like, it's been really great just to talk and chat and get to know you more.
Yeah, thank you guys.
If I were to pick a song, I'm thinking of a song right now that matches everything who you are, and it's "Carry On, My Wayward Son." I think what you just said, and that goes with the British bit too, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Know that song. Yeah, we're grateful to have you on. If people want to learn more about ARX Tech Solutions too, where can they go? ARXTechSolutions.com. You can find us there. You can email me, Isaac, at ARXTechSolutions.com. You can call our number. It's 435-200-5209. You can also find us at EvoluxLight.com. Yeah, we're just kind of launching that one, really trying to get it off the ground, and I'm actually really excited about it. I think it's a great opportunity. And then, if you really want to find me, you're gonna have to go to Wasatch First.
Hey.
That's where I'm at these
Big
days.
shout.
That's where I'm spending a lot of my time. It's a worthwhile opportunity. They're doing great work in behavioral health, and
we are doing great
work in behavioral and mental health, and helping veterans, and incubating companies, and supporting with strategic leadership and fractional services. Like, if there's something that you need in business and we don't have it, we'll go get it.
Oh yeah.
And that's the kind of people that you're dealing with. We have great relationships. There's a great camaraderie here. You're not going to have more fun fixing things than you will with us.
It's true. Now we're going to change the tagline for your role. So it's business dad trailblazing extraordinary.
There you go.
At WasatchFirst.com.
I don't know if I have a big enough back to put that down.
That's what I was
for my tattoo.
Acronyms.
Yeah, we'll have to go with an acronym. That's a good one. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Awesome.
And one thing on that lighting thing you were telling me today too is it's not like every other one that you see out there right now.
No,
it's not
like
the big puck.
No, it's not the puck.
I just want to touch on that.
Yeah, so we have, if you can imagine, like, think of any color that you want. It's on the palette. It's available to you. And then you're not going to ever have to, pull lights down at Christmas time. We have curated holiday displays for the 4th of July, for Hindu Diwali, for Kwanzaa, for anything you could possibly imagine. Yeah. We will have a curated display for. It's movable to music or sound.
Seeing that reaction to music is really cool. It does it so well.
Oh, yeah.
In many different styles.
Yep.
It's so cool.
We should get you involved with the Inclusivity Center in Salt Lake City. My brother's part of that board, but they work
That'd
with,
be cool.
Yeah, all kinds of diversity, holidays, everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'd
love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah. It's like you were saying that you got the 2 pucks, but there's pucks of light.
Oh, yeah. So
everything in between it, yours is going to be lights all across it. It's not
so a lot of companies, they'll put up these little, there's these little pucks, and I think they've got 9 diodes in each puck or something like that. We tend to use a tracked system that has a light almost every 2 inches or every 1.5 inches. So instead of having lights at distances of 5 inches, you can actually program the lights to do what those puck lights do, right? A lot of the people will use them for accent lighting, and so you can program our system to do accent lighting, and you can turn white lights on every 5th light or every 9th light or every 12th light, whatever you want. You can have each light strand have a different motion and color. It's completely programmable. It's an amazing, and Ethan, who, if you guys haven't had him on the podcast, you need to talk to him about machine learning. You need to talk to him about technology and website design, and then get in the weeds on LEDs. That guy is brilliant, and I'm really excited to be in business with him. He's got a mobile application. We've got a desktop application. It's really cool stuff. Excited about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch on that. I was learning more about it. It's really cool, and really obviously a lot of people would be interested in it and how it's different and what it can do. I think it blows my mind seeing all the cool customization.
Our catchphrase is going to be rent a dad.
Oh, really? I love. Well, we also, all the rock climbers out there, we're looking for people to hang up these lights.
Yeah, if you're a rock climber and you need a side gig, a side hustle, we're definitely going to be looking for installation technicians here that don't have a fear of heights.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to hang out with us. It's been great to just chat, and hopefully we'll do it again and learn more about everything you're doing and what's coming next. So.
Yeah. Really appreciate the time.
Of course. Thank you very much. And again, a shout out to Dalton Granger with Morph Marketing, as well as always every successful webcast, podcast always has a guy with a hat and microphone behind the scenes with a beard and long hair. And that's Eric Lichtenberg with Peachy Atomic. So thank you, Eric, for setting all this up today. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Cheers.